Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to learn about repeated measures ANOVA. Before we start this new topic, let's spend a few minutes revisiting two of the tests we learned previously. The first one is the dependent samples t-test. If you remember, in the dependent samples t-test, there is one dependent variable measured on an interval or ratio scale. The sample is measured twice on this dependent variable, and there are no independent variables. For example, a group of students completed a measure of self-efficacy before and after attending a 3-week academic program. In this case, self-efficacy is the dependent variable, which is measured pre and post-treatment. Another scenario of the dependent samples design involves using two groups of samples that can be matched in pairs. For instance, 100 married couples are selected, and the education level of the husbands is compared with that of the wives. Even though each group were only measured once, there is a way to match up the measures between the two groups. The second test we need to revisit is the one-way ANOVA test. It has one dependent variable that is continuous, and there is an independent variable on a qualitative scale with k levels. The independent variable separates the sample into k groups, and their means on the dependent variable are compared. Repeated measures ANOVA is an extension of the dependent samples t-test. In both cases, there is one dependent variable that is continuous. However, a repeated measures ANOVA test is used to compare groups that have been measured multiple times on the same dependent variable. The objective is to determine whether the average values of the dependent variable changed significantly over time across the k repeated measures. In its simplest form, repeated measures ANOVA does not require an independent variable. However, can you have independent variables in repeated measures ANOVA? The answer is yes, and I will provide an example later to illustrate how. Let's begin with an example. A researcher designed a study to examine the effect of a new anti-anxiety medication. The sample consists of 7 patients, and their anxiety levels were measured 3 times. Once before they took the medication, once after taking the medication once a day for a week, and once after taking the medication for 2 weeks. Each measure was taken on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being high and 1 being low. Let's pause here and think. What is the dependent variable? How many times was it measured? In other words, what is the value of k? And what is the sample size? The dependent variable is the anxiety level, measured on a scale from 1 to 10. K equals 3 because 3 measures were taken from a sample of 7 patients. Repeated measures ANOVA is a type of hypothesis test, so we follow the same 5 steps. In step 1, let's state the hypotheses. The null hypothesis says that mu1 equals mu2 equals mu3, meaning there is no significant difference in the measured anxiety levels across the 3 time points. Now, if you had a study in which the sample were repeatedly measured 5 times, what would be your null hypothesis for k equals 5? The non-directional alternative hypothesis states that mu I not equal to mu j for some I and j, where the values of I and j can be any of 1, 2, or 3, as long as they're not the same. Even though the hypotheses look the same as in one-way ANOVA, remember here the means are not from 3 separate groups. Rather, they are the means of the same dependent variable measured from the same sample at different time points. In step 3, we run the repeated measures ANOVA in SPSS. Information from SPSS will allow you to complete steps 4 and 5. I will go over steps 3, 4, and 5 in a separate video. Before I let you go, there's one more thing I would like to mention. In a dependent samples t-test, the dependent variable is measured twice. If it's measured 3 or more times, we have to use repeated measures ANOVA. The question is, can the repeated measures ANOVA be used when the dependent variable is only measured twice? The answer is yes. Similar to the relationship between independent samples t-test and one-way ANOVA, both the dependent samples t-test and repeated measures ANOVA can be used when the dependent variable is only measured twice. They produce the same p-value for the tests, and also the test statistics are related in the form that f equals t squared. However, the dependent sample t-test can be used to test a directional hypothesis, where repeated measures ANOVA cannot. This is the end of this video. Thank you for watching.